Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about data privacy and subliminal learning. Some researchers from UC Berkeley and Anthropic wrote a paper called Subliminal Learning Language Models Transmit Behavioral Traits via Hidden Signals in Data. So, this study, very interesting. What these researchers found is that when they had a teacher model and they were using data in a teacher model, they were able to transmit data to a student model. And even though they had taken certain data out of the student model, it still retained some traits that should not have been retained if they had just taken the data out. So the example they gave is that in a teacher model, a trait existed in a model where it really liked owls. So they took data, they put it into the student model, and they took out all the data referencing owls. So they did a very aggressive cull of the data. And so what they found is that those traits, in terms of liking owls, still was in the model, even though they had taken the data that was related out. This is a big deal. What they found is all neural networks work in this way, where, for example, if data was in a particular model or shared with different models, there may be traits that people may not want in those models. Maybe they have taken them out and they want maybe a new model they're creating not to have that information, but it still has it. So this has huge implications for privacy. It's an example of something that I talk about quite a lot, which is data systems are made to remember information, not to forget it. So putting data, especially data that was personal in nature, confidential, anything that you wouldn't want retained in data sets, putting them into AI models, just deleting the data out of those models or even creating new models may not be enough to take traits or information out of those models. So I think it goes back to something I talk about quite a lot, which is data provenance and data lineage. So not just understanding if you have a legal right to have the data, also thinking whether you should put data in there, knowing that those traits and that information may still remain in some way or shape or form in those models. So I think I like the fact that these researchers are doing this, kicking the tires on AI, so that people know not only the benefits, but the risk and also the limitation, especially if you're trying to delete or remove information, not just even out of that model, but if that data or that information or those that coding gets somehow transmitted into new models, it may not erase or delete that information in the way that people think about, but it'll also retain some of those traits or some of those tendencies that people may not want or may not think about. So it goes back to the data that goes into models. And so companies need to be really aware of what goes in, curate that information really well, and think about the implications of that, especially if they can't delete or remove it. And then, even though you may not be uh, aware of what happens inside the model, you will be responsible and accountable for what comes out. So if the data that comes out of those models has data that maybe you thought was deleted or should have been deleted or can create some type of harm, I think that regulators will look very closely at companies in terms of how they use those AI outputs. That's it. Thank you.